kind of I love that. No, we're not going on a live stream. We're not signed up for live stream. Good, but we are joined again by Liz from DearScout. And those of you who don't know Liz, well, then you're probably new to us overall. My name is Bud. I'm the Director of Membership and Engagement for ACA New England. Liz Kimmelman is one of the founders and CEO. What is your title? I know it's founder, and then beyond that,
president.
Okay, and her partners. Over at My DearScout, which is an employee benefit for your seasonal staff and year-round staff, but it's for your staff around mental health and wellness. And but she also is the owner-director of a day camp herself, which makes her the perfect person to talk to, especially in the middle of the summer. Thank you for taking a few minutes with us, because you are on camp time. Before we started recording, we were just gabbing offline a little bit about, like, what is your... We're not going to get into it, but it was just funny because you were just sharing with me, like, the topic of the day. And talking to camp directors, if you don't do it much, if you're able to catch them in the summer, it's always something. And I got to say, for you camp directors out there listening, or anybody, the camp staff, you're not alone. Whatever you're dealing with, I guarantee you, whether it's in New England or somewhere else in the camp community, somebody else is dealing with it. Just take solace in knowing that everybody's got their head down. Hopefully all the kids are going home happy, healthy, having made friends and learned a thing or two. So Liz, thanks for taking a few minutes to talk. And before we started recording, and this is why we kind of, went rogue, it's a little time has passed since the Texas tragedies. And so if we're not going to get into the specifics there, because Lord knows, whoever you are, wherever you are, it touched you in some way. But really what that kind of got us talking about was the reflections from it, or the questions that it makes us re-examine from more of a macro level. And so we wanted to kind of dig into that just a little bit, because you said something that really struck me of, like, why aren't we recording this? And there was three elements to it: the uniqueness of this environmental situation, disaster, tragedy, these climate related events, the summer camp industry, and I can't remember what the third kind of pillar was. Oh, the nonstop kind of connected news cycle that we have has created this new environment almost for us to, exist when these things happen. Like you pointed out, these other two pillars are so connected that they feed each other in this cycle. So I hope I teed that up okay.
Yeah.
And thank you again for taking a few minutes with us.
Of course, yeah. And just to kind of frame things,
Please.
It's definitely, this is something that I've been, thinking about personally dealing with, not just with the floods and the tragedy in the Hill Country in Texas, but in our fires in California in January, the fires in Hawaii, the fires and floods in the Carolinas.
We had floods up here in Vermont 2 summers ago that were catastrophic, yeah.
If you're noticing a pattern, it's because this is going to be something that we now have to think about, and now that we live with, and that we can, we can't necessarily prepare for a timing, but, for our friends that are down in commonly hit hurricane area, this is not news to them. Or for those of us out in the West that are more familiar with wildfire, obviously nothing like the fires this past January, but this is not news to us. But the thing that I've been thinking about and talking about with colleagues of mine, and then clinicians at DearScout, is really around those three things that we were talking about, right? It's these natural disasters that really feel like, and it is when your community has been attacked, right? It's an attack on you. And then the second pillar is this continual source of access to information. So whether that's news, whether that's social media, whether that's text groups and WhatsApp chains, right? Like, your information can come from lots of different places. And the third thing is the camp community. And it's really important to think about that from any source. And I think the tragedy and the crisis in the Hill Country has shifted this quite greatly, because it doesn't matter now whether you're accredited or whether you're part of the Y or whatever it is, summer camp is now on a national scale a known thing. And those ripple effects of what it means to go to summer camp and what it looks like for a historic tragedy to hit a summer camp, we have documented images of. And so that is in the mind of every parent, whether they send their kids to a day camp in California or a sleepaway camp in Maine, right?
Yeah, parents are parents, man.
Of what the most horrible thing can look like. And so we have this reality now that we can kind of think about and live in and wonder about. What comes from that is a couple things that, as folks that work in this industry, that lead in this industry, I think we need to think about how are we preparing our communities for a possible inevitable situation that we need to respond to, even if it's not directly our community. I think many of us had connections to the Hill Country. We need to think about how do we respond during and after a crisis. And I had a fantastic conversation with my friends over at the Alliance for Camp Health, John Hamilton and
shout out John and the gang.
Kelly Furge. And something that Kelly and I specifically chatted about is really thinking about not just what are you saying as an organization, but what are you saying to our parents who are living in this nonstop information cycle, who are now experiencing new types of stress, possible grief, and other social emotional impacts, mental health challenges. We have to think about our parents.
Still emerging field, still very emerging.
Currently, how are they receiving this information? So how has your emergency communication changed now in this? How are we reshaping, recrafting that communication? But then on the flip side, and this came from one of our clinicians at DearScout, Dr. Danny, how are you recognizing the symptoms of stress in yourself as a leader during these times? Because if you cannot lead and send out communication during these moments, and that system starts to fall apart. And so who can we designate within our organizations, or possibly third party outside of our organizations, to help address during these moments of crisis? And so this is what I'm thinking about after, and now moving forward. Again, there's always a next thing. This morning, or last night, there was a tsunami warning for the entire Pacific Rim. And so I was messaging
it's always something in the camp world,
who have camps on Catalina Island off the coast of California, in the San Juan Islands off the coast of Washington, the state of Washington. All of them, but with the information that they had of potential tsunami effects, what was the actual emergency response, and then what is the change in their communication based on what happened in Texas, plus the non-stop information cycle that their parents are living in, that their staff are living in, that they're living in. The residual stress, and for some of them maybe lowercase t trauma, maybe for some of them, if they knew folks in Texas, uppercase T trauma. How are they communicating out to those families? And then how are they now today supporting each other in what is now everyone's physically fine, everyone's doing okay. how are they now debriefing that and caring for themselves after having to talk with however many tens of parents, hundred of parents about changing program, moving program, addressing a potential tsunami watch or advisory? What's the difference between a tsunami watch and advisory? Was there any impact? Was there not? How do we know? When is it over? All of those things that mesh into this that affect your camp community and your well-being and moving forward. And the reality of this, that the uniqueness of a natural disaster plus is going to happen again.
There's
and I think the big picture here that I'm trying to get is that, like, we're not just I want to encourage folks to find the leadership in themselves now and find the care in the communication that they can reach down in right now, and building those relationships with their parents and their community now, so that you can craft this language and these relationships so that you're prepared for the future. You're not alone, like you said before, but you're also not this isn't something that just has to happen to you and that you are, like, you're useless in, or I'm blanking on the word, but, like, you're not
alone on the lake, but you are in your own boat, and you're responsible for your boat, and that's kind of what you got to be focusing on.
And also, you also might need to, like, call in the Coast Guard.
That's my point. Is you're not alone, but your responsibility is right in front of you. Your resources and your community and your neighbors are going to be of the utmost importance.
Yes.
But reminding yourself that you got to act.
Know who's around you.
Yeah.
Know, like, if something does happen to you, know when it's important to call in an expert to do this for you. You don't have to call if a tragedy happens to your camp. You don't have to be the person that calls and deals with the media. You can call in folks to do this for you.
And actually,
it's really important to know.
And I want to take that really from you right there and put a bow on this, because then we also are gonna meet with Liz again. And if you're listening to this right now, then pause, come back in a couple of days, unless it's about 2 weeks from now, in which case, thanks for catching up, because we're going to release part 2 with Liz, the camp director, and checking in on her, the human, and her world, and also talk about the peer-to-peer stuff a little bit. But I want to go back to that part about looking for the experts. Twofold on that. I'm going to say kudos to you, because you got to know what you know and you got to know what you don't know, and there's a reason that we have insurance companies and lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. But the most emerging space, and I've been saying this for a few years now, I'm not alone, it's not like a hot take or anything, is the mental health arena. We for so many generations in camping lived by grit, buck up, do this, whatever that, and in the last 5-10 years especially, the mental health space has been emerging. And I always go back to the adage that if I walk up and I'm like, I don't feel good, I think something's wrong, my thumb's hanging off, well, we know where the pain's coming from. That's physical pain. Mental health and wellness is still an emerging field. And there are professionals out there, and there are things you can do, like talking to Liz and folks at my DearScout and getting engaged with them, because you do need to be prepared. My sister and I go through this mental exercise with just normal decisions. We go, what's the worst humanly possible outcome? The pizza doesn't show up? All right, then we'll make something at home. But not to make light of it, what Liz is getting at, and I agree with everybody to do it, is you have to kind of be vulnerable enough to ask those questions of, where are we vulnerable? What if lightning strikes? What if we do have a wildfire? What it's not a fun exercise, but you aren't alone anymore. And so be a little more prepared, so that when that tsunami, no pun intended, it's not a joke, but when that information comes, you don't have to rely on the information. You have what you need right here. And the last thing that I want to highlight is we are in an entire new generation and wave of parents who grew up with access to information. They might have different expectations for their communications, et cetera, ad nauseum, ad infinitum. So it's never a bad idea to reflect on that and to take all those considerations into account. Like, you got to stop. Even if a lot of camp directors are parents, and so they get it, or maybe a little quicker. But to anybody working in the camp community, you got to remember our product and our service is somebody's most treasured item in the universe. And so reminding ourselves of that every day, it can get scary because it is a scary thing, because our product and our service is really taking that precious item and making sure they're having fun and they're safe and they're taken care of. So long story short, Liz, I really can't thank you enough, because when everything's been going on this summer and some of the stuff that I told you about offline, I think about you both as a mental health professional, in that arena with that company, and also as a camp director. So you have a unique perspective on these things, and I'm not going to put her business out there, but if you do ever want to talk about this stuff, I highly recommend you reach out to Liz over at My DearScout, or Liz, the camp director.
Yeah.
Liz, hang in there for a few minutes. We're going to circle back and talk about camp directing and how things have been going this summer. Thank you so much.